Hello folks, welcome to my YouTube channel Watercolor Impressions. I have done a lot of morning painting, but this focus on more on cityscape painting. Before you go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. And let's get started, guys. As always, I'll provide the drawing template and reference. Check my description to download it so you guys can follow with me in this tutorial. So when it comes to drawing, I look for the major shapes, that means the bigger shapes, and I'll go with the secondary shapes and tertiary shapes. And I also had a couple of figures from my reference, and I also made some couple of cars as well in the foreground. Even though in the reference there was a glow on the left hand side at the top right, top left, but I'm going to use a little bit of cadmium red in there, so it kind of creates this warmish glow. It also shows that there's a warmness in our scene. And you can also leave it white, and it also gives that glow as well. So when you do your first wash, think about your painting the light first. So that's what I'm trying to do, but as it comes down, I'm going to have a little bit of colors whatever left in my palette. But I'm pretty sure that the ground is warmish tone, so I'm going to put a warm color using raw amber, a little bit of yellow ochre in it. And as it comes to the foreground, I'm going to introduce a little bit of gradient, so it kind of gives the lead in to take us into the painting. So I'm going to the foreground building, and when I'm doing this, I'm thinking about where the eyelets will go and leaving some white bits for it. And you can see in the foreground in the awning, which is in the foreground building. So I started with the background first. So the background, we have to push this to a distance. So in any kind of traditional painting or any kind of painting you do, cool colors go in distance and warm colors come in the front. So when you know these things, cool and warm colors, you can play with it, and you can also put any colors you want. So you can see I'm kind of combining the background as like one piece, and everything is melting together. And I'm also making sure to collect the pigment at the bottom of my background. So when I put any color in that, it gives this blurry gradient at the bottom. It also gives this beautiful gradient of backlighting. Backlighting is really easy to paint because the one thing we have to keep in mind is doing a gradient. So there's going to be light at the top. As soon as it comes down, it's going to be a little bit of a gradient in the mid part, and as it comes to the bottom, it's going to be darker. And I don't want to be, the bottom should be like one plain color. So you can see I mixed a lot of amber, and they used burnt amber. I'm also putting some burnt cyanide on there, and I'm also using a lot of French Ultramarine blue at the bottom as well. And you can see I'm also adding another blue color. I'm using Cerulean Blue for that. And I will just let it dry for a bit. So I'm going to be focusing on the foreground building as well. So this have to be painted as fast as you can, because I'm just going to give some eyelets using my nails. I'm just taking off some of the eyelets back so that there's something is happening. So when I do painting like this, I try to paint it fast and I leave the impressions as it is. But at the end, I'll go and fix it. So when it comes to the right hand side, the foreground building, I'm going to be using a lot of warmish tone. So this is where I was talking about warmish tones comes in the front, and cool colors go at the back. So I'm keeping that in mind. I'm also putting a lot of warmish colors, and I'm also doing wet on wet technique here. So because I want to look this blurry, so if you squint your eyes and if you see the reference, the shadow side is going to look blurry. So that's where you have to put a lot of details, and you have to hide it in such a way that it's there but it's not there. So I'm playing with that technique. So I'm also making sure that everything bleeds together. I'm just leaving it as it is. So in the foreground, on the shadow side, I'm also trying to combine the shadow side with my car, which is standing in the front. And you can see really fast, we kind of blocked in the lighting and shadows really fast. And you can see it is really easy to do this in watercolors, because it's a really fast medium, and it also gives that impressions really fast as well. So I'm trying to block the road, and I'm making sure when I'm doing these things, I'm trying to connect my shapes with everything together. You can see even the car, I'm trying to connect with the mid-road as well. And there's a bicycle rider. And these are the things, if we add, it gives this realism in your painting. In any kind of painting I do, I make sure to add people, and that gives a scale in our painting. And it also gives this life to the painting as well. But still I struggle doing figures, but still every day I try to do better figures and try to do it properly. And it's better to have some lighter figures, some darker figures, but I have a bad habit of doing something light and going over and doing it dark. So this is our major figure. So the person who is walking in the front, I'm making sure that I'm putting a lot of details on it. On the rest of the painting, I'm just going to keep it to minimal. So you can see the street lights, and there's a lot of street lights which is in the foreground as well as in the midground. I'm making sure to keep it minimal. So there might be like 10s or 15s of street lights, but I make it down to maybe 4 or 5. And there's also this street signs, as well as there was a signboard. I also adding that as well. And there's also like a signboard which is also I'm adding it near the building as well, because that helps us to create a shadow. So now so you can see quite really fast we block this painting really quick. So this painting will come alive as soon as we start adding shadows, but I'm trying to add some tertiary details before I jump on to adding the shadows. And I'm also adding some darker bits on the sky, because that will connect the wires which to the street poles and everything else. And you can also see there's a car in the foreground. I'm also making it as dark as possible. You can see as soon as we add the shadows, the whole painting came alive, the lights start appearing in our scene, and it gives a little bit of realism in our painting now as well. And you can see when I add the shadows, I'm making sure that the shadow direction quite matches to my other shadows in my scene too. I've seen a lot of paintings when they add shadows. This is the biggest shadow which is peeking through in the foreground. And you can see as soon as we add the shadow, we have contrast happening in our painting as well. There is a light bit which is happening on the right hand side, and there is a dark bit which is happening on the left hand side. So I'm adding some street wires, which also helps to act as a lead-in in our painting as well, and it also gives that realistic look, and it also gives the city vibe in our painting as well. So you could see, so when you add those details, keep to minimal, and I'll just add a lot of details in the midground. So now we have to do the finishing touches. So for the finishing touches, we can use white paint. A lot of people cringe upon using white paint on watercolors, and I do, and I also use Chinese white, so that I kind of using a traditional medium. And some people use gouache as well, and it's up to artist preference. This is to bring back some of the highlights which we missed while we painting. And as you can see, as soon as we add those highlights happening on the figure as well as on the cars, it kind of gives this crisp look in our painting. So when you do any kind of painting, have this white bits till the end, make sure you get the major shape first, then focus on the secondary shapes and tertiary shapes. And I highly recommend not to add highlights in the front, but you can also leave some highlights white paper by painting it as well. I also have this tape in every painting I do. This is just to, it looks ugly, but when I take off, it looks like how the painting looks like. Thanks again for watching this how to paint morning painting video tutorial with me. Let me know what you guys think about this painting in the comment section. If you want me to cover any other subjects in watercolors, write me at watercolorimpressions@gmail.com or comment below. Before you go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. Please do share with your friends and family, and good luck with your painting, folks.